Praise the Lord, everyone. I am Yasha Stewart, and I am a worship leader at the wonderful ForWord Christian Center. And today we invite you to take a look into the message, which was called Preparation for the Promise. It is given by our pastor, Tadera White, and we just ask that you be blessed and take a moment of your time just to tune in. We thank you.
Are you ready for the word? Amen. So am I. Let's go to the book of Joshua, chapter number 1, verses 5 through 7. We're reading from the King James Version of the Bible on today. If you don't have a Bible with you, it's all cool in the game because it's right here on the screen for you. And here's what it reads in Joshua chapter number 1, verse number 5. It declares a very profound promise from God himself. He says, there shall not any man, let the church say any man. There shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of thy life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. Verse number 6, he says, but I need you to be strong and of good courage. For unto this people shalt thou divide for an inheritance the land which I swear unto their fathers to give them. And then our final verse, which is verse number 7. Only again be thou strong and very courageous, that thou mayest observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded thee. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that thou mayest prosper whithersoever thou goest. I want to talk for just a few moments from this thought. I want to talk about preparation for the promise. Preparation for the promise. Repeat that after me. Preparation for the promise. Because every promise that God gives to us, it is imperative that he prepares the people for the promise that he proclaims, lest we make the promise of God that which becomes sabotaged because we were not ready to receive the promise that he made. Most of us by now, throughout the course of our lives, have encountered certain individuals, whether we know them personally or from a distance, that we admire them for their leadership qualities. Down through history, there are some notable leaders that many of us would agree that that individual was a decent leader or they were a great leader. Within the political arena, there are some who still hold President Bill Clinton as one of those just downright good leaders. He was just a good leader. His ability to be genius when it came to the political arena and to be able to operate and flow on both sides, whether it was Democrat or Republican, and to be able to establish some degree of equilibrium despite the differences in the two political arenas. He was just a genius when it came to politics. He was a good leader. Within our ethnicity, amongst those of us who are African American, we consider people like Dr. Martin Luther King as a great leader. Taking the reins at 26 years old, a young man, educated man, smart man, intellectual brother, yet a strong man, prophetic in his own right during his day. One of those great leaders of the civil rights movement that without him, I'm not sure what the movement would have been. Perhaps someone else could have been raised up, but for such a time as that, Dr. King was a great leader, a great motivator, a great leader of people. Some of us would even consider our nation's first African-American president as a good leader on all sides. We didn't just vote for him because he was black. We voted for him because he was black and qualified. Smart, intellectual, degreed, prepared, charisma, poise, and a little swag, to be honest about it. His ability to be in an arena and not to lose his cool, not to have anyone to cause him to be knocked off his square. The threat of his life being taken on a day-to-day basis, threat of his children's lives, his wife, her life, but to be able to stand and to lead the country to the depths that it did, to be able to help us to recover from a recession that really hit us hard in the face. He was a great leader. In a biblical context, maybe not for you, but for me, this is just my personal belief that next to Jesus, the greatest leader in the Bible was Moses. Second to none, hands down. And he was not always defined by what he had. He was defined by what he did not have. He did not possess. And one of the things about a leader is that you have to be able to be a communicator, and a great communicator at that. And Moses was not the best communicator because he stuttered. He told God that. He said, I can't speak. I don't speak well. My speech is not the best. But God slapped him in the mouth and said, you don't have to be able to. That's what you got your brother Aaron for. Delegate to him. He was a great leader. And he was a great leader not just because he led, but because of how many he led. He led the children of Israel, which means you ain't talking about 50 or 60 people. You're not even talking about hundreds of people. In fact, you are not talking about thousands of people or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. You're talking about millions of people that Moses had the responsibility of leading, and he led that many people, check this out, across a Red Sea. You know you got to be some kind of leader to get people to trust you to walk in the midst of water, and half of us can't swim. Some leaders can't get people to go around the corner, but Moses was able to convince them that God was with them to the extent that he would part the Red Sea and allow for them to walk across on dry land. The problem with great leaders, and good leaders are an endangered species, so whenever you have one, it's really a great gift from God. But the problem with good leadership is finding someone to replace them when their season is up. That's the hard thing about great leadership, finding someone who can fill those shoes. And it's very difficult, especially when you have to enter into an arena where you yourself may have to fill a position where the person who preceded you was a great leader. There's always that unnerving sensation that you may have. Sometimes your heart begins to palpitate and your forehead begins to perspire because you realize I got some major shoes to fill. I mean, who can come behind this person and take it to the next level? That's the hard part about leadership, and it's definitely difficult on the leader as well as on the followers, because the followers are trying to figure out, where's you taking us from here? And now you have to deal with the dilemma of trying to live up to a standard that was created and established by someone else, which is why I like the book of Joshua, because Joshua is that dude that takes leadership immediately after the death of Moses. Who can come behind Moses? It's some people that are so great that when their season is up, you just need to just eliminate the whole organization. Just let it go. Who gonna come behind them? Who can be next behind them? But God picks Joshua. God uses Joshua. So that means that Joshua has to be an extra kind of fella. And that's exactly what God gives him. He gives him extra because even God understood what kind of pressure that Joshua would be under to lead this group of people to the promised land, to take them over into the next arena. He understood that, which is why God comes to him and says to him, listen, Moses, my servant, is dead. He's gone, and I know he was a good man and he was a great leader. He said, but I had to make it a little easy for you. I had to look out for you, which is why I believe, and this is just me eisegetically inserting this. This ain't the scripture would say it, but this is just how I feel about it. It's in my mind's eye. I believe that's one of the reasons that God buried Moses. God buried Moses, and nobody knew where God buried Moses. No, God didn't tell him how to get there. There was no GPS. There was no navigation system. There was no address. There was no P.O. box that he could give to the people to just go to the place where Moses had been buried, because God knew that because they loved Moses so much, they probably spend the rest of their days sitting at the grave of Moses, hoping that God would resurrect him, only for him not to return to them, which would suggest that the next group would never enter into the promised land, because it's going to be difficult for you to embrace your present as long as you're still in love with your past. So God has to bury him and hide him so that the people would not try to hold on to what God was done with. Not in this room, but at your cousins in them church. I wish I could preach it to them and tell them that sometimes you got to let the dead bury the dead. lest you end up memorializing and sensationalizing death to the point that you spend your days moping over who ain't here until you overlook and forget to thank God for those that yet remain. So it is, God has to give him something extra. He has to give him something extra. God knew exactly what he was doing. God had to come to him and tell him things like, as I was with Moses, so shall I be with you. And I can hear Joshua saying in his mind, God, if you're going to allow me to serve in the place where Moses once served, then you're going to have to do for me exactly what you did for me. I can't do this without your presence. I can't do this without your help. I can't do this unless I know that you are with me. You are going to have to lay your hands on me. You're going to have to put a mantle of a seal of approval on me, something to let me know that I'm not in this thing by myself. If you can do that for me, then I can handle it. But if you don't give me your presence, if you don't give me your favor, if you don't give me your word, then I'm not sure I'll be able to handle the task that is at hand, because truly now, if the Lord don't help me, I can't stand this storm. I can't deal with millions of people and their attitudes. I can't deal with people and their emotions and their feelings. It's too many of us for all of us to always agree. So God, I need you to give me something a little extra. Let the church say extra. That's the reason that you've made it in the circus and in the arenas and the circles that you've prospered in, is because God had to give you something a little extra. I don't know who I'm preaching to in this room right now, but the only reason you are where you are is because God had to give you a little boost. He had to give you something extra. Ordinary people can't handle what you handle. God had to give you something extra for all the seasons of your life where you were hurt and you were bruised and you were battered and you were misunderstood. In order for you to still make it, God had to give you something a little extra. Yeah, it might be a little easier when mama and daddy is in the house, but when your mama trying to raise 2 and 3 kids all by yourself, who can be a witness that God had to give you a little extra? It's great when it's a 2-income family, but when it's just 1 income and you got to handle all of these bills and situations and insurances all by yourself, in order for you to make it and not lose your mind, God, I need you to give me something a little extra. I need you to give me something on the inside of me that can cause me to face a frowning world and smile at Satan's rage, which is why people should never try to downplay your experience. Oh, it bothers me and gets under my skin. It burns me up, as one of my teachers used to say. It just burns me up. And how it is that people can judge you when they don't even know you. They have no clue of what you've been through. As a matter of fact, if you took off your shoes and gave it to them, I promise you they couldn't even walk a mile in your shoes, knowing the things that you had to go through. But the only reason you made it is because God had to give me some extra. You ought to just throw up your hand and shout, God, give me extra. Give me extra for the fools that I have to deal with. Give me extra for the people that don't understand. Give me extra for the people that's always speaking out of term and out of line, like as if they know you and they don't even know the half about your story. They don't even know your middle name, but they claim to know your whole life. God, give me some extra. God has to give Joshua a little extra, and here's the extra that he gives to him. I can't recall God really saying this to anybody else in scripture, and if he has said it, please forgive me for being wrong. Please forgive me for being in error, but this is the first time that I've heard God say something like this to a man. He says to Joshua, verse number 5, I hope you read it. It was right there in the text. He said, there shall not any man, be able to stand before thee. No man, I don't care who he is. Check this out. God says, if he stands before you, he's going to fall. That's heavy. For you to know that every situation in your life, Mel, every situation, if it come before you, you know you got the victory. Any dude from anywhere that raise up against you, you know the end from the beginning, you already know you're going to win. That's some blessed assurance that Jesus is mine for your behind right there. Which leads me to my first principle, my first point. You can write this down. Before you go into the promised land, here's the first thing you need to do is be sure. Be sure. Look at somebody like you mean it and tell them be sure. Be sure. Be sure. Ain't no hateration, no holleration in this dancery. You need to know he is with you. Be sure of that. No weapon formed against you shall be able to prosper. Every tongue that rises against you in judgment, thou shalt condemn. Be sure, greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. Be sure, many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivereth them out of them all. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadows of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Fist bump your name and tell them, be sure. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When my enemies, even the wicked, came up on me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Though a host should encamp against me, in this will I be confident, that nothing that comes against me shall be able to destroy me. 1,000 shall fall at my hand, and 10,000 at my right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Somebody ought to shout, be sure. Nothing that comes before you will be able to take you out. This is the promise that God gives to Joshua. There shall not any man, I don't care how big he is, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. No matter how big or enormous or ubiquitous or magnanimous they may be, they'll fall. He says, be sure that there shall not any man be able to stand before thee. Check this, all the days of your life. That means even when you get old, you'll still be whooping them up. In your old age, you'll be teaching and schooling them little young punks. Look at your name and tell them, be sure. Be sure that he's with you. Be sure that he's with you. And I'm looking at about 6 or 7 of y'all in this room that you ain't even got to belabor this point too much, because you know he's with you. You know he's with you. You know truly God got to be with you for you to survive all. Man, listen, for you to have gone through as much hell as you went through just in 2018, and the fact that you made it over here and you in the middle of the year of 2019, you ought to declare, I know he's with me. The reason I know he's with me is because, listen, you can go back into my history. If you don't believe he's with me, all you got to do is go back and ask everybody that tried to tear me down. All you got to do is just go back and ask my enemies. Even my enemies will have to tell you, I tried, but it looked like every time I knocked them down, that joker just kept getting right on back. Who am I preaching to in this room? That ain't nobody got to tell you. It ain't no question about it. You ain't got to go and fill out no application to see if you're going to get an approval. I know he's with me. I've been broke, but I never missed a meal. Lost a job, but he kept a roof over my head. Been sick, but he healed my body. I'm sure that he's with me. He said, before you go into the promised land, you got to be sure that no matter who stands before you, they're going to fall. Every last enemy. I want to speak that prophetically over your life. Whatever giant, whatever enemy is standing before you, don't be afraid of it. It should be afraid of you. God, help me in this room. I feel like I'm going to run all around Ensley. I don't care what it looks like. Instead of you being afraid of it, it should be afraid of you, because the difference between you and your enemy is that God gave you the promise. And they can't operate on a promise that God never gave to them. So he says, be sure. But then secondly, he says, not only do you need to be sure, but he says, be strong. Let the church say, be strong, be strong, be strong, be strong. Now, I was tripping about this. I was tripping about this, Kendall. I was tripping about this, Cheston, because theologically, I had to look at the text, and I'd be asking God questions. Y'all scared to do that, but I'd be asking God questions, because I'd be wanting to know the answers. Here's the question I asked God, Brother Cedric. I asked him this last night as I was trying to dissect this particular verse, verse number 6. He says to him, be strong and very courageous. He says, because what I'm getting ready to do is I'm going to use you to divide an inheritance unto these people so that I can give to them what I promised to their fathers. Here's the question that I asked God. What difference does it make how strong he is? Why does it matter? You told him in verse 5, no man that stands before you is going to be able to handle you. So if you made me a promise that no man going to be able to stand before me, what difference does it make if I'm strong? You spoke your word into the atmosphere. Now you have to honor your word. Whether I'm weak or strong, you still have to honor your word. Whoever come up against me, they going to fall down. So what difference does it make if I'm strong? And then it's like the Holy Spirit slapped me upside my head and said, boy, keep reading. Verse 6, he says, be strong and very courageous, for thou shalt divide unto this people the inheritance, watch this, that I have promised to their father, which means this. Y'all, please don't tear the club up when I say this. He's saying, I don't need you to be strong when it comes to fighting. Because I already got that. Who is the King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty. The Lord mighty in battle. Somebody been reading their Bible. He said, I already got that strong in battle part. So basically, what do you need me to be strong for? It's in the text. You already read it, but you overlooking it. He says, I need you to be strong because I'm getting ready to give an inheritance. That's all right. I used to be slow too. Here it is. I need you to be strong, not in battle, but I need you to be strong in blessing. Because I'm going to drop something heavy on you. I tried to tell you this several months ago. You didn't hear me, so I'm going to repeat it, tell you to you again. It takes courage to be blessed. You can't be blessed and be weak. Because if you blessed and weak, then folk that ain't got what you got will try to make you feel bad about having it. Come on to church whenever you're ready. The doors of the church are open. Here it is. He says, I'm getting ready to depart or part unto you an inheritance. What's an inheritance? An inheritance is something that somebody else worked for and they just let you have it. Now do you see why it's going to take strength and courage for you to be blessed like that? Because that means now you're about to receive some blessings that you didn't work for, some blessings, some houses you didn't build, and some wells that you didn't dig. And God said, I'm getting ready to let you have that. And now you're going to have to walk around other people that are going to be looking at you strange and up and down because they know you don't qualify for what you got. And since you don't qualify for what you got, they'll try to make you feel bad about the fact that you have it. But high five your neighbor and tell them, be strong anyway. Oh, you see, the reason some people are mad and angry and disappointed and frustrated with you right now is because they have been unsuccessful in crushing your spirit. That's the reason they mad at you right now. The fact that they going through all kinds of hell, but you still walk up in the room with a smile on your face. And they mad about the fact that they struggling going through. But it looked like God keep opening doors. He keep on blessing you. You keep facing a frowning world and smiling at Satan's rage. Check this out. And it ain't because you ain't going through nothing. You just made up in your mind, I'm not going to allow what I've been through to change who I am on the inside. Even if I ain't got money, you ain't going to be able to tell by looking at me how broke I am, because I'm crazy enough to believe that if I confuse the enemy, he'll make me live like what I'm looking like. High five 3 people and tell them, be strong, be strong. Be strong, be strong. Walk down that aisle with your boo. Go on in the mall with your boo under your arms. I know some of your friends ain't got nobody right now, but I ain't gonna be around here looking sad just cause you ain't got nobody. I'm gonna enjoy the season I'm in. I don't know how long it's gonna last, but I'm gonna thank God for what I got right now. Yeah, so they don't have a new car and you get one and they want you to feel bad about the fact they ain't got one. The devil is a lie. I'm going to enjoy my ride and thank God that everything working, and I'm going to thank God that when I turn the key in the ignition, it actually crank. I'm going to thank God. Listen, you might not be able to put no gas in your car, but I ain't going to feel bad because I'm able to put some in mine and you ain't able to put none in yours. I mean, as good as God has been to me, I don't feel like I should mistreat God like that. I need to tell him, thank you, thank you, thank you. And lift my hands, lift my hands, lift my hands. Rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. You can sit over there and be sad if you want to, but as for me and my house, this is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice. That's why when you see folks sitting in church with their arms all folded, baby, you ain't got to praise him with the rest of us. Don't nobody care about you sitting there looking ugly or oogly. When I think of the goodness of Jesus and all he's done for me, I dance circles all around you with your mad self and thank God for how good he's been to me. It takes courage to do that. Takes courage to do that. He said, be strong because I'm getting ready to give you an inheritance. Stuff you ain't worked for. Stuff you ain't asked for. You didn't even know your great-grandmama and them even left that for you. I mean, imagine the kind of courage you got to have. If somebody come to you and give you the deeds to a mansion and say, your great-great-grandmama and them prepared this for you before you was even thought about, it's yours, go live in it. Now you finna lead the hood. You can tell that this is hater look. So that's hater talk right there. So you just gonna leave the hood like that? You just gonna leave us? Yeah. If you forget the hood will forget you. Well, if I don't need you like that, talking about forgetting, you better try to remember me as blessed as I am. Talking about forgetting you, you better try to remember. Y'all don't want none. Somebody just got you a Benz. They gone. It's yours. Paid for. You ain't got no. You just drive, put some gas in and go get the oil change. They done covered your insurance for the duration of the time you're going to have it. You just drive it and enjoy it. It's going to take some courage to drive that around your homeboys who ain't able. He says, so I'm giving you an inheritance. You got to be strong because if you're not strong, your weak-mindedness will allow you to park it when you go around them and drive your lesser car. Because now you have to dummy down who you are to make mediocre thinking people feel comfortable when they in your presence. He said, no, you got to be stronger than that. I'm going to be blessed. I'm going to thank God for it. I can't lower my standards just because you ain't got none. I'm sorry, I mean, my God, if I put in the time and I put in the work, Lord knows I deserve something for it. Out of all the things you've been through, folk, they ain't even worked as long as you work. They come in at 8, you been there since 6. They leaving at 3, you getting off at 7, and they trying to judge your glory when they don't even know your story. You ain't put in my time. You ain't go to school like I went to. You ain't study like I studied. You ain't pray like I prayed. You ain't cry like I cried. You ain't beg like I begged. You didn't bring up the real like I brought up the real, and you think that I'm just going to give up my blessing just because you ain't got one. The devil. Look at your neighbor and tell him, be strong. Before you go to the promised land, you got to be sure he's with you. You got to be strong because you're going to a land of milk and honey. You leaving this stuff over here. You is leaving Egypt where you were slaves. You going to Canaan where you finna own some stuff. I need you to be strong in your mind, lest you remote back to where you came from thinking that you don't qualify and that you're unworthy for it. So he said, I need you to be strong. But then finally he says, I need you to be spiritual. It's in verse number 7. It's in your Bible. I hope you didn't tear it out. Verse number 7, he says, only be thou strong and courageous. And then he says, if you do that, you will be able, here's the part, to observe all according to the law that I gave unto Moses for you to be able to follow. Okay, it's heavy right here. You can't just be sure he's with you and strong in blessing and forget the need to be spiritual in the book. All right, they don't want to hear this at church, God. That's cool. Me and you going to do this together. If you observe what's in my law, check this out, and don't turn to the left or to the right of it, you will prosper in whatever you do. That's what he said, verse number 7. Sometimes it is the will of God, Miss Tony, for you to have a one-track mind. You ain't pass me that towel, I'm sweating up here. I feel like it's finna get rough. Thank you, sir. He says, I've given you my law. I've given you my word. I've given you my order. I've given you my principle. Observe it means behold it. Behold implies revelation. See it, comprehend it, understand it. Don't waver from that. Check this out. Remove the word compromise from your vocabulary. Can I tell you the reason some folk mad at you? Is because you won't take their opinions. They mad at you because you won't honor their suggestions. If your suggestion ain't what he said, I'm not obligated to do your word. I'm obligated to do his. And the reason that some of us miss our blessing is because we trying to make everybody happy. We try to make everybody comfortable. You can't please God without displeasing Negroes. If you pleasing everybody, I promise you, you ain't pleasing God. Somewhere along the line, God got the back end of the stick because you're trying to make everybody smile except God. He says to Joshua, if you gonna prosper, I need you to observe everything that I've said to you. Don't go to the left or to the right. Don't waver. I don't care if it's a good idea. If it ain't God's idea, who cares that it's a good idea? Because God is so much God that he'll take a good idea and cause it to flunk. But if it's God's plan, it may sound like a bad idea, but I've seen God turn bad ideas into good ideas. As a matter of fact, rich, wealthy people will tell you that they started out something that didn't always seem like it made sense. Okay, let me give you a case in point. Growing up in the hood, when we got thirsty, we went what we called outside. You remember when kids used to play outside? And your mama tell you, don't you come back in this house letting the flies in, so you had to stay outdoors. So if we got thirsty, we went to our house, went to the neighbor's house, went to that little green hole pipe, turned on that nozzle. Hey, you want some of this? Put your mouth up under there. And wasn't that some good water? Oh, my God. That hose pipe water and that faucet water in the bathroom, boy. Oh, my God. That water was so cold in the bathtub. Oh, my God. Y'all act like y'all ain't been there. Forget y'all. You know you done drunk some of that cold water before. That we got water anywhere. In school, I mean, water was like a luxury. It was a blessing. Your teacher would tell you, stay on a single file line, go to class. Every now and then, somebody jump out of class, go to that water fountain, and try to jump right back in line. So when somebody came up with an idea to put it in a bottle and charge you for it, bruh, I can go for free to this hose pipe. Why would I pay you to put it in a bottle when grandmama and them got one of them big old jars? We can make what is called ice water. And now we won't drink water unless it's out of a bottle. That's why other countries don't like us. because we got tail washing water and drinking water. You shower with one kind of water, you wash your hands with one kind of water, then you drink another water. And water was as close to us as a hose pipe. And somebody took an idea to put it in a bottle, filter it a little bit, and charge you, if you go to the movies, $8, chief. Go to a convenience store, $2.39, tall, smart waters. Charging you for what we used to go to the hose pipe for. Sound like a bad idea, but somebody has made millions of dollars putting water in a bottle. Why is that? Because good ideas don't always work. God ideas always work. Here's what he said. I need you to be spiritual and say what I've said in my law. Speak what I've spoken in my book. Here's what I want to say. At some point in your life, something that comes out of your mouth ought to sound like something that God would say. Sister girl, at some point, baby, you can't always talk about clothes and money and getting your hair done and your nails done and your feet done and these different polishes and these different lip glosses and lipsticks and boys all the time. At some point, something needs to come out of your mouth that sounds like something that God has said. Bruh, at some point, everything can't be about the Warriors and the Raptors and Steph and Kawhi and Katie and Clay and LeBron. At some point, we got to stop talking about football. At some point, we got to stop talking about sports. At some point, we got to stop talking about our jobs. At some point, we got to stop talking about how much money we ain't got. At some point, the conversation can't always be about cars and rims and cash. At some point, you need to say something that sounds like something that God would say. Y'all don't want to go with me, but I'm trying to tell you that at some point you're going to have to start sounding like God, because if you start sounding like God, you can start living like God, and when you start living like God, you can get God kind of stuff. Preach, Pastor, I am. We finna raise up, we finna turn up, we finna go. I'm finna drop something heavy on you. Heavy. It's finna be a tornado. Take your social studies books and cover your head, because it's finna be a tornado. I need you to get down on your knees in front of the locker, because a tornado is finna get ready to come through the school. Here it is. Check this out. He says, if you do this, don't waver to the left or to the right. If you do this, last part of verse number 7, he says, you will prosper whithersoever thou goest. Let me say something to you. Hear me. Church folk who want to be too spiritual, ain't nothing wrong with prosperity. Cut it out. Ain't nothing wrong with prosperity. Ain't nothing wrong with prosperity. It's something wrong with people, but ain't nothing wrong with prosperity. The Bible says God delights in the prosperity of his people. Ain't nothing wrong with prosperity. Now, I ain't a prosperity preacher, but I ain't no poverty preacher neither. You understand what I'm saying? He delights in prosperity. But check this out. Here's the thing that I got to say to you, because if you got a problem with prosperity, then all of you that's got kids, when school let back in, don't wake them up to go to school. The only reason you made your kid, who got kids that graduated high school? They didn't graduate high school. All right, they graduated high school. You made them go to school all the morning. You remember them times they would sleep and they rolled back over and got into bed and under the cover, and you came in there like a Russian mighty wind with 3 6s across your forehead with a sword and a shield, and you would kick it. Get your out the bed. Get in there and wash your face and brush your teeth and eat them Rice Krispie treats so you can catch the bus. And go to school. Why? Because you want them to learn something. You want them to be smart and make good grades. Why? So they can graduate high school with scholarship and go to college and don't have to pay nothing back. Why you want them to go to college? So they can get higher education. They can get a degree. Not just a degree, but a decree that I ain't got to bother you no more. Get this degree, get you a job so you can do what? Make some money. That's the only reason you making your kids go to school, so they can get out of your house, get out of your head, get out of your pockets. We are all prosperity driven. You want nice clothes. You want something nice to ride in. You want something nice to live. We are all prosperity driven, no matter how you look at it. You save money for prosperity's sake. You got the house you got because it's conducive to your needs and some of your wants. You didn't need that many TVs in your car. You don't even look back there. You in the front seat. You can't even see the ones in the back. You're driven by something that makes you feel better. You didn't need rims. You didn't need tint. You wanted it, something to make you feel. It is not God's plan that you must get your toes done. You don't have to. Wash your feet. That's good feet. You ain't got to paint your fingernails. It's like, oh God, if I don't get my nails done, I feel like I'm out of the will of God. You are not out of God's will. Wash your hands. Washed hands are good hands. We are all prosperity driven, and ain't nothing wrong with it. He says, I've come to preach the gospel to the poor. What is the gospel to the poor? You ain't got to be poor no more. Jesus says, the poor you'll always have with you, but me you will not always have, which means he separates himself from being poor. There's a difference between the poor and him. And of course, he ain't got to be, because if you can turn stones into bread, you don't need money. So here's the point. Ain't nothing wrong with it. But here's what's wrong with it. How we think it's coming. That's our problem at church. How we think it's coming. Can I tell you why your cousin's still depressed? Because they think God just going to do it. They think God just gonna send it on down, just gonna give you the call. He just gonna do it for you. But here's what I need you to understand. Here's the point I need you to make. Hear me, Facebook. Hear me, YouTube. Hear me when I say this. Your prosperity does not depend on God. I don't care about you getting quiet. I know what I'm saying. I'm going to say it again. Your prosperity does not depend on God. I'm going to say it 3 times. One for the Father, one for the Son, one for the precious Holy Ghost. Your prosperity does not depend on God. Your prosperity depends on your willingness to obey God. If your prosperity depended on God, why is it that folk that don't even go to church got more than us? They ain't nowhere near the church. They ain't nowhere near God, but they living a good life. Because we fall in love with the person of Jesus, but we never embrace the principles of Jesus. The person of Jesus will get you to heaven. His principles will get you prosperity. He says, if you observe and do my law and do everything I commanded you to do, here it is right here. He says, whithersoever thou goest, we finna leave, whithersoever thou goest, you will prosper everywhere you go. Which is why God came back later on and told Joshua, check this out, wherever the sole of your feet shall tread upon the ground, it's gonna be yours. Now, I want to say this to everybody that's getting ready to leave, and you finna walk up on a lot, and you finna lay your hands on the car, and you getting ready to anoint that house. Listen, yes, every place that your feet tread upon the ground, he'll give you, but only if you are staying in the law. Only if you are observing to do everything that he said. Now, if you ain't obeying nothing, you ain't getting nothing. But when you obey God, you ought to throw up your hand and shout, I got a right to it. Oh, God. He says, everywhere you go, whithersoever your feet tread upon the ground, I'm giving you victory. This is when you've been walking so close with God, you can go up in a place and say, listen, I don't care what department you put me in, it's going to be blessed when I get there. I don't care if you put me on the first floor or the 10th floor. Wherever you put me, no matter who it is, I don't care who the boss, who the manager, who the supervisor is. I need you to understand that when I come to this job, I'm not blessed to have the job. The job is blessed to have me. It's getting ready to increase. The revenue getting ready to shoot through the roof because I'm not just a person that walks around in wishful thinking, but you looking at somebody that I don't mind walking in the ways of God. You're looking at somebody that feels like David who said, thy word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against God. I feel like having church. Come on and shake your neighbor by the hand and tell them, neighbor, God's got a blessing with your name on it, but you got to live up to his name. And he'll sign a check in your name. You got to live up to his words. And then every word that comes out of your mouth, God will snatch it out the atmosphere, send it up to heaven, and send it back down in the earth. And I heard the Bible say that the heart of the king is in the hands of God. So when you get to the place where the provision can be utilized, I hear grandmama saying that while you trying to figure it out, God has already worked it out. You ought to high five your neighbor and tell them, neighbor, the reason I know I'm blessed is because I walk after God. Wherever he leads me, I will follow. I guess you can't shout if you want to do it your way, but do I have a witness that when you do it God's way, then eyes have not seen and ears have not heard, neither has it entered the heart of a man the good things God got in store for them that love his name. Do me one favor, high five two people and tell them, neighbor, I don't know what the rest of your year is gonna look like, but can I speak it over my own life? The next 6 months of 2019, I'm gonna have what God said I can have. I'll be driving what he said I can drive. I'll be living where he say I can live, and I'll be doing what he said I can do, and I'll be going where he said I can go. Is there anybody here that can praise him in advance for your tomorrow will be better than your yesterday? I feel like preaching in the room. Somebody here been bringing up the rim for far too long, but I heard Jesus say, if you call me Lord, Lord, you ought to do the things I say. And 3 of y'all ought to help me preach that problem that I had, I just couldn't seem to solve. I tried and I tried, and then I tried. I cried about it. I prayed about it, complained about it, but I prayed about it. But when I turned it over to Jesus, I stopped worrying about it. I gave it to God, and he worked it out. Is there anybody here know he'll work it out? Know he'll handle it? Know he'll pay the bill? Know your soul he feel? If you know he can, if you know he will, throw your hand up, throw your head back, Do it like a Baptist preacher and shout, yeah! Before you go to the promised land, he don't need to give you cash until you get some character. May God not give you dollars until he give you some more discipline. May God not give you prosperity until you get some understanding of who he is and what he's all about. No more promotion if you're not going to be a giver. I ain't praying for you to get no raise if you ain't going to give them back to God in this season of your life. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. He says, I would above all things that thou wouldest prosper and be in health, but only according as your soul prospers. And if God blessed us naturally, according to where we are spiritually, how much would we have? If your salary depended on how close you are to God, how much would you be making in a year? If God gave you a car according to your relationship with him, what would you be driving, or would you be walking with no socks or shoes? If God gave you a house according to your soul prosperity, where would you live? So in this season of our life, I believe that God is opening doors. He's creating opportunities in your life, in the life of our church, in the life of our ministry. But Jesus says, I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I'll come again and receive you unto myself, which means you ain't going now. I got to prepare a place, but it's only for prepared people. And I believe that God is calling us to, number one, be sure that he's with us. He's with you. It doesn't matter who's not. You don't need everybody to like you. You don't need everybody to be on your side. Contrary to popular belief, you don't need everybody to agree with you. You don't need everybody to co-sign. You just need one. And if God be for us, the rest of the world better back up off you. If God likes you, nothing else matters. So be sure. Be strong. What he's getting ready to give you, you ain't got to feel bad about it. You ain't got to feel guilty. You ain't got to explain to folks about your process. How you got that? None of your business. God did it. I walk with him. He speaks to me. I do what he tells me. And then finally, he says, I want you to be spiritual. Get in the book. I'm sorry. There is no substitute for knowing what he said. If all the words you get is what you get from me, I'm here to tell you, stop it. I'll be your preacher. I'll be your pastor if you're part of this ministry, but I can never be your God. I can't be my own God. I got to depend on the same one that you are going to have to depend on as well. I can't be all the words you get. But if you observe his word and walk in it, I love that. Whithersoever thou goest, I don't care if I'm in Hoover or Ensley, God will bless. I don't care. If I pack up the bags and move to a desert in Arizona and stand on the back of a pickup truck and start preaching, I believe God will send somebody in the desert if he got something he want them to hear from me. I believe God will take so care of you if you stay with him, that if ain't no food in the house, he'll let a chicken truck flip over right in front of your house. Chicken will cluck right up to your door and knock on it with his beak and say, God told me to tell you to kill me, season me, cook me, and eat me, because I will never see the righteous forsaken, nor his seed beg for bread. Father, I thank you today. You're preparing our hearts. You're preparing the grounds of your people for the next move in their life. Last Sunday, you told us to bust a move. This Sunday, you're telling us We need to be prepared for your promise so that we will not sabotage the blessing that you have for us. I thank you in advance that today we are sure wherever we go, you're with us. Even when we don't feel you, you're still there. You're there all the time. When we're sick, you're there. When we're lonely, you're there. When we're driving in the car all by ourselves, when it looks like all of our friends are too busy, we calling and texting people, ain't nobody responding, you are still there even in those moments. We're strong in our blessings, but most of all, we're spiritual in our faith, in our walk with you. And we thank you in advance for what you are about to allow to happen in our life, because we're walking with you. In Jesus' name.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in today with the ForWord Christian Center. Tadera White is also our pastor. We hope you enjoyed the message today, and we hope you were spiritually enriched by it. We also have Bible study 2 times on Wednesdays, and come out to Ensley to our service. We have 2 services, one at 8:34 and another one at 10 o'clock. We hope that you be blessed. Thank you.